Hello, my name is James Mandelbaum, Senior Security Engineer at Gigamon. Today we're here to cover the Gigamon basics of configuring ports. The agenda today is we're going to review the types of ports. We're going to configure the ports via the command line for those that like to live in the command line. And we're going to configure via the graphical interface, which is a much easier way of doing it. So let's get into port types. As you select the different types of ports, you're going to have the option of selecting between multiple types. The first is, and the default, is that of a network port. That's an ingress port. That's to receive traffic inbound into the appliance. A tool port is exactly what it sounds like. It's an egress port which is outbound to connect to your security tool or whatever tool is going to receive the traffic. A hybrid port is a special port that allows you to use it in both manners. We can take the traffic in like a network port or feed it from a network port and then use it again for other functions, specifically around GigaSmart functionality. A stack port is an interconnect between different appliances. In essence, it's a backplane connection which creates a cluster between appliances, making them all look as one large appliance. When you've created those clusters of appliances and you maybe have more than one cluster and you want to interconnect them, that's what a circuit port is for. An inline network port is a protected circuit which allows you to take traffic inline and interact with real-time traffic tools. So the next one obviously is an inline tool which allows you to interact with that inline network flow. So think of the concept of an IPS where I may want to make interaction in that inline traffic. So an inline network usually aligns with an inline tool. As mentioned earlier, there are a couple ways you can configure ports. The first way through the command line where you would SSH into the node, log in as an admin privileged user. You would change from the default classic mode into configuration mode, and then you would issue the commands to change the port. The other way is through the graphical interface. And while you're in the graphical interface, you also have a couple ways. You can do them one at a time, which gives you a bunch of granular settings, or you can use the quick port editor, which allows you to very quickly provide all the information you need and get it done very fast. Most of the times, I'll use the quick port editor. So let's talk about the command line function. So as we SSH in as an admin privileged user, we'll need to use the command in enable to move from classic mode to configuration mode or type configure terminal to move us into configuration mode. The first thing we're going to do is set the network type. We saw earlier all the different network types, but for our demo purposes, we're going to set it up as a network. So it is port followed by box number, slot number, port number. So 11x1, the type, and then the type of port we're going to configure, which in this case will be network. Now, if you want to do a range, as an example to the right, I've got 11x1 through x4. I could set a group of ports all in one foul swoop by issuing that command. The next thing we're going to do is issue the port alias command, which means we're going to give it a friendly name, something that tells us what that port is, so we don't have to go back and look at diagrams. We can see very quickly in our example that this is an internet feed. The next thing we're going to do is tell it to administratively enable the port. Until you do that, that port can't be used. So let's get into it. Let's demo that functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and log into the box. I'm going to do enable, configure terminal, and I'm ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a port 11x1. I'm going to tell it it's a type of port of network. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do port 11x1, give it a alias, and I'm going to go ahead and use internet feed 1. So I've given it a nice friendly name. The next thing I'm going to do, port 11x1, I'm going to give it a parameters, P-A-R-A, my mistake, params admin enable. And I just turned it on. So if I do a show port, and we take a look at port 1, we'll see that port 11x1 is a network port. We've got our alias, and it is administratively enabled, and it shows that the port is up and running. And that's all it takes to do it at the command line. Now, as we move into the graphical user interface, there's a couple ways we can do this. One is we can go in, click on ports, click on the individual port, and edit it. which gives us granular controls over the port. The other way is if we're just looking to go ahead and set up the ports based on the port type, give it a friendly name, and enable it, we can use the Quick Port Editor. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that's done. So as I log into the box, into the Graphical User Interface, I can click on Ports. It's going to go out and show me my list of ports, and you can see we've already configured one with a nice alias name. It can show us that it's enabled and it's up. But let's go ahead and click on the port itself. We'll click on Edit, and you can see the details where we've got the alias up here. We can show that it's administratively enabled. We can see that the network type is network, and there's a list of all the different types, and we discussed all those. You can see that you've got granular controls. You can do all kinds of settings around the parameters of the speed, full duplex, auto negotiation. You can look at port discovery. You've got all kinds of alarms and permissions that you can set. A lot of these we tend to leave at defaults, so we're not really going to go anywhere, but I wanted to show you how the details you can do. The other way we can do this, which is what we commonly do, is over here on the right is the Quick Port Editor. So I'm going to go into Quick Port Editor, and I'm going to go ahead and add a couple ports. So the next thing I'm going to do, if I can type today, is I'm going to do Internet Feed 2, and we'll be using this in a later video where we're looking at different types of mapping, and I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create my packet capture tool. And I'm going to make this a tool port. And I'm going to enable it. So all I've done is I've created 2 inbound network feeds and I've created an outbound network tool. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. It'll tell me that they were updated. I can close this and you'll see down here that I've got Internet Feed 1, Internet Feed 2, both on network ports. And then I've got down here on 11x5 my packet capture tool that's a tool port, and they're all ready to go. It's very straightforward to configure the ports. Take a look at one of my other videos, and I'll show you actually how to map the traffic from Internet Feed 1 and 2 into the packet capture tool. Thank you very much. Be sure to follow the YouTube channel, and have a wonderful day.